right, so section 3.1. So we're starting chapter 3 today. First section, we're going to be talking about lines and their relationships and how those lines, when they intersect, are going to create some angles. And then the angles are going to have relationships to each other as well. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is draw a cube. So on a cube, you're going to draw the front face. We'll call those E, F, G, H. And then we're going to draw this diagonal lines going back. Those are the three that you'll see if it's kind of turned sideways. And if we connect those, that'll give us A and B. And if we connect down to here, that'll give us W. And then there's a sixth point at the back, but you can't see it, so we're going to dash it in. You know it's there, you just can't see it. Okay? We'll call that point C back there. All right, so on this cube, it creates some edges, and these edges are lines, basically. Okay? So some of the words you're going to see and you're going to be asked to identify in this section is parallel lines. And most of you have heard of parallel lines before. You just may not have seen the symbol. The symbol is basically two sticks next to each other like that. Okay? So there are many or several pairs of parallel lines. We're just going to list one. I'm going to say that EF is parallel to GH. Okay, so segment EF is parallel to segment GH. How many of you have seen that parallel symbol before? A couple of you? Good. All right. The next one is perpendicular. And again, most of you have heard of perpendicular lines before, but you may have not seen the symbol. It's basically an upside down capital T. Okay. That upside down capital T is shortcut for perpendicular. So on this cube, we're going to use segment AB. We're going to say that it is perpendicular to segment AE. AB could also be perpendicular to AC. Right? We could have listed that one instead. Okay. Now we're going to see this word that you guys have seen once or twice that you're all like, what does that mean? It's called skew lines. So now you're officially seeing skew. Skew is when your lines are not coplanar and they do not intersect. Okay, so coplanar, you take off the word not, coplanar means just that they're in the same plane. So not coplanar means they can't be in the same plane. For instance, if we're looking at this plane over here on the side, all of the line segments or the sides are all on that same plane. Okay, but if you look over here, EG would not be on that same plane. Okay, so let's say that FB and GH are skew. The last one that you may or may not have ever thought of is called parallel planes. So parallel planes work very similar to parallel lines. They're going to never intersect, right? So if we talk about this plane up top, we'll call it plane ABE. you just have to have 3 points, is going to be parallel to the plane at the bottom. So we'll call it CWG. Okay, so that's a little vocab for you for section 3.1. Now we're going to transition into what's called angle pairs. That are formed by a transversal. Plug that and turn that off, put your phone away. Thank you. By what's called a transversal. So there's this fancy word right here, transversal. Okay? Transversal is basically going to be a third line that's going to intersect the other two. So transversal is your third line, and it's going to intersect the other two. So you have two random lines. So we're going to draw a line going this way. We'll call that line R, and then we'll just have a random line going this way. We'll call it S. So we've got two lines. We're going to have a third line called a transversal. We're going to go, that's our transversal. We'll call it line T. Doesn't always have to be T, but since it's the transversal, that's often a good thing to call it. Okay. When you have these two lines and it's intersected by that third line, it creates angles at their intersections, right? There's one intersection here and one intersection here, right? At this intersection here, how many angles does it create? 4. So we'll label them 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then you come down here to this second intersection. How many angles does that one create? 4 more. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8. So it actually creates 8 angles. Okay? Each of these angles can have relationships with each other. Okay? First of all, from the two lines that aren't the transversal, you're going to have what's called an interior. So this area over here is going to be your interior. This area over here is also your interior, because it's between this line and this line. Okay? If it's not interior, it's exterior, right? So that means this whole space up here is exterior, and this whole space down here is also exterior. Interior and exterior is important because 3 of the relationships involve whether or not they're interior or exterior, okay? But the first one does not. It's just called corresponding angles. Okay, so we're just going to list corresponding angles. Does anybody know what the word corresponding means? Okay, corresponding means they match up, or in this case, they're going to be in the same position. Okay, so if we look at angle 1 right here, and then we follow that transversal down, which of these angles is going to be in the same position as angle 1? 5. So you're going to say angle 1 and angle 5. Okay, now let's look at angle 2. Follow that transversal down. Which of these angles is in the same position? 6. So angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles. How many pairs am I going to have? 4, right? Okay, so here's angle 3. What's its corresponding angle? So 7, you're going to say angle 3 and angle 7 are corresponding. And then the last pair, obviously the last two, angle 4 and angle 8 are also corresponding. So that's the first relationship, corresponding. Pretty easy. Just whatever angles are in the same position as you follow that transversal down, they're going to be called corresponding, okay? The next relationship is called alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. So what does the word alternate mean?
I think it's across.
Yes, opposite sides across, okay? And interior means it can only be in the interior. You can't use any of the exterior. So how many pairs are we going to have?
2.
2 pairs. 4 total, but 2 pairs. Like 2 pairs of shoes, you actually would have 4 shoes, right? Okay, so let's look at angle 3. Angle 3 and which other angle are going to be alternate interior angles. So you have to follow down the transversal, go on the opposite side. What number is there? 6. So angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. Let's look at the other one right here, which is angle 4. So its alternate interior angle is going to be 5. And those are the only 2 pairs of alternate interior angles. Okay? Next relationship is alternate exterior. So alternate exterior, going to be on the opposite sides of the transversal, but they have to be exterior. So it can only be angles 1 and 2 and 7 and 8. So here's angle 1. We're going to follow the transversal down and we're going to hop over to the other side of the transversal. What number is there? 8. So angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. There's one other pair, and that's with angle 2. Follow the transversal down, hop on the other side, and what number is there? 7. Okay? The last and fourth relationship is called same side interior, same side interior. Okay? So same side means exactly what it says, same side. Okay? Interior has to be between the 2 lines, so in here. And so if we have angle 3, we follow the transversal down, we stay on the same side. What angle's there? 5. We start with angle 4, we follow the transversal down, we stay on the same side. What number is there? 6. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, so a lot of the problems on your assignment are basically going to be identifying those. But let me show you a tricky situation. So that's going to be example number 1. We'll call it tricky transversals. Okay, and the only thing that makes it tricky is because you kind of have to figure out which transversal they're talking about. Okay, so if we have one line going this way, we'll call this line L. We have another line going this way, we'll call it line M. Whoops, move it down a little bit. And a third line going this way, we'll call this one line N. What makes it tricky is that the transversal is going to switch depending on what angles you're talking about. Okay? So let's label a few angles. We'll call these angles 1 and 2. We'll call these 3 and 4. And we'll call these 5 and 6. All right. So if I tell you to identify the relationship between angle 1 and angle 3, We first need to figure out